guys, my name is Trevor Sullivan. In this video, we're going to take a look at two different things pertaining to PowerShell and regular expressions. Now, in a previous video, I demonstrated how you can get started with regular expressions in PowerShell, but in this video, we're going to take a look at two things to build on top of that. Number one is going to be how you can select multiple matches within a regular expression rather than just selecting the first match. The other thing that we're going to take a look at is how you can create what are called named captures in regular expressions. And so a named capture basically allows you to assign a custom name rather than having to refer to an element that you've captured by its group number or element number within a capture group. So let's go ahead and jump in right now. Now I'm going to be using Microsoft Visual Studio Code for this demonstration. And if you haven't already done so, please go make sure that you install Visual Studio Code, install PowerShell Core Edition, and install the PowerShell extension for Visual Studio Code. You'll need all of those components to help make you as productive as possible inside of Visual Studio Code. Now, you should be able to follow this tutorial on pretty much any platform. In this case, I'm going to be doing it on Mac OS. So if you're on Windows or on Linux, or if you're on Mac, feel free to just follow along. The steps should be basically the same once you've got your VS Code environment set up. All right, so let's jump in here. So I'm in VS Code here, and I'm going to hit Command-N to create a new document. Now, I'm going to switch the language mode of this file to PowerShell because the default is basically just a text file, plain text file, that doesn't allow any syntax highlighting, IntelliSense, and other functionality to be available. To do that, I'm going to do Command-K and then Command-K, M. And when it says select language mode, you're just going to type PowerShell here, and that'll change it over to be a PowerShell file. And you'll know that based on the little icon that appears next to your untitled file in Visual Studio Code. So now what I need to do is go ahead and generate some interesting text for us to work with. So to do that, I'm going to switch over to Google Chrome, and I'm going to pull up this website called generatedata.com. It's a free tool that allows you to generate randomized data to test your applications with. So what you'll want to do is, let's just refresh the page here really quick to clear the form. So under the column title, I'm just going to type something like text. And then when I choose the data type for this text column, I'm going to choose the random number of words option. And so this is going to generate a random number of words on each line from the numbers that I specify. So let's say generate from 1 to 50 words per line. And then down here under the export type, by default, it's going to choose HTML, but that's going to spit out a lot of HTML tags that we aren't particularly interested in for the purposes of this demonstration. So what I'm going to do is switch over to the CSV type, and that'll just give us some plain text. Now, the other thing I'm going to do here is change the end of line character from Windows, which is the default, over to Unix style line endings instead. So then you'll just click the generate button and it'll spit out a bunch of text after a few seconds here. And then what we're going to do is copy and paste this text into Visual Studio Code into our PowerShell script so that we can work with it. So I'll do a Command-A, Command-C to copy, and then I'm going to switch over to VS Code here again, and I'm going to create a variable called text. And this variable is just going to contain all of the text that we just copied from the Generate Data website. And then I'm going to use what's called a PowerShell here string, which is basically a method for you to define a multi-line string. And that's defined by using @ single quote. You can also use a double quote, but I have a separate video that talks about whether you should use single or double quotes. I'm just going to stick with a single quote for best practice here. And then you need to make sure the very important part here is that the here string must have a line that begins with a matching quote followed by an @ sign. So once you have that defined, you can just paste in your text here. And now we've got this text variable that's got a whole bunch of text. And you can remove that first line header if you want to. That's basically just the CSV header row that we would have had if it was an actual CSV file that we were working with. So now I've got this text variable. The reason you see a squiggly mark under it is just because the PS script analyzer module is saying, hey, you've got this variable called text, but you're not actually using that. You're not referencing that variable anywhere inside of your script. So once we start actually writing the rest of our script here, that squiggly line will go away. So don't worry about that. So what I'll do here is just minimize this. I'm going to collapse this section here. And so now that we've got this text variable defined, we need to start actually writing our regular expression. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the named capture component. And just to take a quick look at our sample text here, we have a lot of different words. I'm just going to say, show me any word that starts with a D. So, there's one here. There's, let's see, if we select a D, we should see a lot more here. So we've got this one up here, this one here. So I'm just going to say, I want a regular expression that matches any word that starts with D. That's a very simple thing to get started with, right? So what I'll do here is do text. So this is the text that I want to match. And then I'm going to use the match operator, which is a PowerShell operator, and specify the regular expression that I want it to match against. Now I want to match a D followed by any word characters. Now, this isn't going to quite do what we want because this will actually match inside of a word. So if you have a word that doesn't start with D, but it has a D somewhere inside of it, followed by some other characters, then this is actually going to match that. So what we want to do is put a space in front of it there. And so if we hit function F5 to execute our script in the terminal down here, you'll see that we have a true result from line 104. So what that's done is it's automatically populated the matches variable here. And you can see that I've matched a space followed by a word DUIS, right? Well, that's not quite what we want. We want to match the actual word. We don't want to match the space that's leading in front of it. So regular expressions have something that are called groups. So that allows you to group the different elements of your regular expression rather than just matching an entire string. So a group is simply defined by putting parentheses around the part that you want to capture as that group. So now if we hit function F5 again to rerun our script, you'll now see that my result from the regular expression is actually containing two different groups now. There's the kind of overall master group, like the global match that we received, but now we have an index 1 in addition to that contains only the word that we are after, right? So it's sometimes convenient if you're matching lots of different elements inside of a regular expression. It's sometimes very useful to refer to these different capture groups by a name instead of by the index number. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., right? You want to actually say, okay, this is my D word. Okay, this is my whatever element you want to classify it as. You can define that as what's called a named capture. So to do that, what we do is we add after the group parenthesis, we add a question mark, and then we use angle brackets, kind of like an HTML tag, to define any arbitrary name that we want to for this named capture. So what I can do is say, I'm going to call this just D word. So anything that matches this group is going to be matched to D word. It's going to match to a group named D word. So now when I rerun that script hitting F5 or function F5 if you're on a Mac keyboard, you can now see that the result down here has replaced the index 1 with an index of the name that I specified, which is D word. So now what I can do is I can say matches.dword instead of doing matches index 1. So if I do matches index 1, I no longer get a result, but if I do matches.dword, you can see that I get the value that was matched to that particular capture group in the regular expression. So that's how you can use named captures. This is very useful in particular when you have multiple elements that you're trying to match and you're trying to pull different pieces out of your regular expression. So as an example of that, let's say that I want to find every D word that's followed by, let's say, an R word, okay? So to do that, I'm just going to modify my regular expression to follow with another space, and then I'm going to create another capture group, called R word. And then this is going to be R and then any number of word characters following that. So I'm expecting to have a word starting with D, followed by a space, and then a word starting with R. So let's go ahead and run this. So I'll do F5 again. And now you can see my capture result has index 0, which is again my kind of global capture that matches that regex. But now I have two different properties. I have D word and R word. So now I can say, I don't care what the D word is. I don't care what the R word is. I just want to get those values based on this reference name. So I can say .D word, and then I can just copy that down. I'm using Alt-Shift down arrow to copy the line down. It's a nice shortcut to get familiar with in VS Code. And then I'll do R word. So if I do function F5 to rerun this, you can see that it prints out my D word followed by my R word. So that's named captures. They're a really, really useful feature. I'd highly recommend that you use named captures anytime that you're using regular expressions, just because it gives you a name to refer to the different match elements by rather than a kind of random index. Okay, so that covers named captures. The next thing that I want to talk about is how to do multiple captures within a regular expression. As you may have noticed, there is only a single match that I'm getting back when I use the match operator. So I'm only getting one instance of a D word followed by an R word, but there might be others. So how do we find those other instances? Well, first of all, I'm going to try to find another example here just to make sure that we do have multiple instances. So I'm just looking through here. I see a D followed by an A, D followed by E, and D followed by E. So let's actually change our regular expression for this example to be a D word followed by an E word instead of a R word. So I'll do D and then change this to E, change that to E, and change that property to E. So now I have a D word followed by an E word, but as we just saw, there's at least two and perhaps more instances where there's a D word followed by an E word, but we're only getting back the first one. So how do we get back the other instances of that particular regex match? Well, what we can do is take this regular expression that we've defined in this string here, and instead of using the match operator, what we're going to do is create a regular expression object. And there's a PowerShell type accelerator, so you don't have to type the full namespace and class name. It's like system.text.regularExpression or something like that, where you can actually just abbreviate that down to regex like I have here on line 108. And then there's a constructor on that class that accepts a string, and that string is the regular expression that you want to perform a match against. So then once you've constructed that object, just assign it to a variable so that we can use it in our script going forward, right? So now that you've created this regular expression object and specified exactly what you want it to match, you can start calling the methods on this object. And if I start typing match here, you'll see that this object, this regular expression object, actually has a match and a matches, plural, method. And if we take a look at the method's signature by hitting Control Space, you can see that there are a couple of overrides here, but it's very simple to call this method. All we have to do is specify a single parameter containing our input string, and that input string is our text variable that contains our big wall of text up there, right? So let's go ahead and hit Enter to confirm that matches method, and then I will pass in my text variable. And so instead of It's a little bit reversed from this first example where we're taking our text and we're matching it against a regular expression. In this case, we're actually creating a regular expression and then we're matching it against a series of text. So I can actually reuse this regular expression object if I wanted to match it against many different instances of text. So let's take a look at what the result from this looks like. I'm just going to comment out these lines here. So I'm going to do Command K, Command C, and that key chord will allow you to comment text. If you want to uncomment, you do Command K, Command U. So Command K, Command C to comment that out, and let's go ahead and hit F5 to run this again. And what you can see now is that we're actually getting multiple instances of our regular expression match. So every time that we have a D word followed by an E word, we're getting a separate match object. So let's basically take each of those match objects and pipe them into this command called getMember. This allows us to basically inspect our objects that are in the pipeline. And what that tells us is that the result from calling the matches method is an object called a match object. And as you can see by scrolling through the results here, we're actually getting an array of match objects back. So we've got a bunch of match objects, and for each of those map objects, we can extract the D word and the E word that followed the D word. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'll take this matches output and then pipe it into the for each object commandlet, which is built into PowerShell. And for each of those objects, I'm going to take the D word, add a space, and grab the E word. So let's go ahead and do function F5 to run this. And I'm not quite getting any results because if we take a look at one of these objects, I actually have to dig into the groups property first. So what I need to do is take these groups and so we'll take the matches, do a for each, and then say for each group, I want to get the D word property. So let's try this really quick. Okay. Let me try indexing it into here. There we go. So now what we're doing is we are getting the D word property. So basically these match objects have a groups child property that refers to all of the groups that were matched. So that 0, D word, E word, each of those groups. And then what you have to use the indexing syntax using the square brackets to actually reference one of the groups inside the regular expression match. So then what I'll do is I'll say add a space followed by the current item E word. So let's do function F5. Oh, sorry. I need to actually grab the value from each of these as well. All right, there we go. So now we've got the D word value followed by the E word value. So there's actually a child property, as you can see, on the group called value, and that actually extracts the string itself. So now what you can see is I've got all of the different matches from the document, and it's showing me the D word followed by an E word. And I could replace that with any other text. I could say, show me C words followed by D words, right? And all I'd have to do is basically change this to, let's see. D words followed by C words followed by D words. So I'll change this to C and D. And if we run this again, now we can see all of the examples where there's a C word followed by a D word. Now, if you want to take this one step further, what you might have noticed, I'm going to just undo a few changes here. When we had D words followed by E words, you can see that there's duplicates here, right? And so maybe you want to count the number of unique instances within a document, right? We don't necessarily care about there being duplicates. We just want to get the unique instances. So what we can do is take that and pipe it into the select object, and then specify the unique parameter. And so that's actually going to filter everything down, and it's going to eliminate any duplicate values. And so now we can see that there are only 5 different examples within this document, 5 different unique examples of where a D word follows an E word. And all of the other ones that matched were duplicates of one of these. So that's how you can match multiple items within a text value using regular expressions in PowerShell. And we also discussed named captures. So I hope this video was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Please leave a like on the video if you liked this, and leave a comment, and let me know what other kind of content you'd like to see on this channel. Thanks, we'll see you soon.